At the family baby shower, my sister-in-law said, "Don't worry, guys. She's just jealous no one threw her a shower." Everyone snickered. I stayed quiet. Then my best friend walked in late and said, "Sorry I'm late, traffic was bad. But here's the check from the surprise baby shower you all ignored." The room went cold. Last weekend, I went to my sister-in-law's baby shower. I wasn't expecting much, just wanted to show up, bring a gift, smile, and leave. My son was with me, and I brought cupcakes from a bakery he loves. Everything was fine until someone asked why I looked so serious, and my sister-in-law laughed and said, "She's just jealous no one ever threw her a shower." Everyone chuckled. I didn't say a word. A few minutes later, my best friend Naomi arrived late and walked straight up to me. She handed me an envelope and said, "Sorry I'm late, traffic was bad. But here's the check from the surprise baby shower you all ignored." And just like that, the entire backyard went cold. No one had anything to say. I'm not one for family drama, not really. I've always tried to avoid it, tried to keep things steady for my son and myself. But sometimes, staying quiet just makes the noise around you louder. My name is Fiona. I'm 39, a second-grade teacher in Charleston, South Carolina. Life didn't exactly pan out how I expected. I married young, too young, and thought Louis, my ex-husband, was going to be my partner through all of it. But when I told him I was pregnant, he looked at me like I'd just admitted to setting our house on fire. By the time I was 6 months along, he was gone, headed off to Arizona with some waitress he'd met online. I didn't fall apart. I didn't have the luxury. I had a baby on the way, a mortgage, and a classroom of 22 kids who still needed me to show up with a smile and a lesson plan every day. My son Jasper is 7 now, the best thing that's ever happened to me. Raising him alone wasn't easy, especially when my own family treated my pregnancy like an inconvenience. When I was pregnant, no one threw me a baby shower. Not my mom. Not my sister-in-law Mara. Not even my brother Miles, who I've always been close with, really stepped in. I didn't complain. I figured maybe they were busy, or maybe they didn't know how to show up for someone going through something they didn't approve of. But I never forgot. So when Amara, my sister-in-law, announced she was expecting earlier this year, I did the polite thing. I congratulated her. I even offered to help plan the baby shower, which she declined, saying she wanted it to be a surprise, which was laughable, since she was heavily involved in the guest list and Pinterest board. My mom jumped right into party planning mode. She loves any excuse to turn the backyard into a Pinterest fantasy, matching napkins, twinkle lights, mimosa bar, all of it. I was invited, but only as a footnote. The formal invites went out to family and friends via cards and Facebook. I got a text. Not a phone call. A text. I remember staring at it, reading the words, "Hope you can make it," like they were written in invisible ink. Still, I went. I dressed Jasper up in a little button-up shirt. I brought cupcakes from Sugar Bake Shop, his favorite. I even put together a nice gift, a wicker basket with diapers, burp cloths, and a handmade blanket I ordered on Etsy weeks before. When we got to the house, the backyard looked like something out of a Southern magazine. White folding chairs, peach and pink balloons tied to the gate, flower arrangements in mason jars. Amara was floating around in this pale pink chiffon dress, rubbing her belly like she'd just discovered it that morning. Her friends, most of them women who only exist on Instagram, were posing for pictures at the photo wall. I kept to myself. Sat at a table near the edge, tried to keep Jasper from eating too many cheese cubes. That's when the moment happened. Amara was opening gifts, cooing and shrieking over every onesie, and someone off to the side asked why I looked so serious. I wasn't even frowning. I was just sitting there, trying to keep my mouth shut. Amara didn't miss a beat. She didn't even look at me. "Don't worry, guys," she said, half laughing. "She's just jealous no one threw her a shower." The air shifted. Just enough to feel it. My mother laughed, kind of weakly. My aunt smirked. A few of Amara's friends giggled into their drinks. Not one person looked uncomfortable. I didn't say anything. I've learned over the years that silence is sometimes louder than a shout. Jasper tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Why are they laughing at you?" That hurt more than the comment itself. Before I could figure out how to respond, Naomi walked in. Naomi has been my best friend since college. She's a nurse at MUSC, tough as nails, fiercely loyal. She helped me through the worst of my divorce, and when I was pregnant, she showed up at every appointment she could. She walked in wearing jeans, sneakers, and her hair still wet from the rain. In her hand was a long, white envelope. She didn't look at anyone but me. "Sorry I'm late, traffic was bad," she said, walking up to the table. "But here's the check from the surprise baby shower you all ignored." She placed it in front of me and turned to the rest of them. "For those who forgot," she said calmly, "we threw one last year for Fiona. Her coworkers, her neighbors, her friends all came. A few of you were invited. None of you showed." It was like someone pressed pause on the world. No music. No clinking glasses. No fake laughter. Just stillness. Then she smiled, just a little, and added, "Congrats on the baby, Amara." And with that, she turned and walked back out the gate. No one said anything. Not for a long while. Amara looked stunned. My mother's face went rigid like she was biting back a retort. Miles wouldn't meet my eyes. Eventually, people started murmuring again, pretending nothing had happened. I stayed for another 10 minutes, just long enough to finish Jasper's juice box. Then I picked up our things and left. Not a single person stopped me. That night, after Jasper fell asleep on the couch halfway through an old Finding Nemo DVD, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. The envelope Naomi handed me was still in my purse. I took it out, expecting maybe a handwritten note or a memory, but it was exactly what she'd said: a check. A reimbursement. For all the expenses she'd covered when she and a group of my friends threw me a surprise baby shower last year. A real one. There had been balloons, food, a cake that said "Welcome Jasper" even though he was already born, and a guest book where people wrote things like "You're doing amazing, Mama." None of my family showed up. They were all invited. Back then, Naomi told me not to take it personally. That people get busy, things fall through the cracks. But it had stuck with me like a little sliver under the skin that you try to ignore but always feel. And now, she'd brought that moment into the light. Not in a cruel way, but in a way that made it impossible for the people around me to keep pretending they didn't know. The next day, I got a call from my mom. I debated not answering. I even let it ring twice. But some part of me, still wired to seek her approval even at nearly 40, picked up. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "That was inappropriate," she said. My throat went dry. "What was?" "That display. Your friend embarrassing your sister-in-law like that." "She embarrassed herself," I replied, quietly. "She made a joke at my expense." You all laughed. "It was just a comment, Fiona. You're too sensitive sometimes." That phrase. "You're too sensitive." I'd heard it all my life. Whenever I tried to stand up for myself. Whenever I cried. Whenever I wanted someone to notice that I was hurting. "I'm not sensitive," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I just finally stopped pretending it doesn't hurt." There was a pause. "Anyway," she said, a little too sharply, "I hope you won't hold a grudge. That kind of negativity isn't good for Jasper." And just like that, the call was over. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just another version of what she always does: smooth it over with a condescending comment and change the subject. Miles called later that week. His voice was quieter, softer. "I had no idea you were still upset about the baby shower last year," he said. "I wasn't, not really. I was hurt. There's a difference." He sighed. Amara's comment was out of line. I talked to her about it. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what he wanted me to say. Look, he added, I know it probably seems like we don't care. But I guess we just thought you had it handled. You always do. That part made me pause. He was right. I do handle things. I always have. But just because I've learned to carry the weight alone doesn't mean I want to. Or that I don't notice when people step around me while I'm struggling. I don't need grand gestures, I told him. I just needed to not be forgotten. There was silence on the line, and then he said, I'm sorry. And I believed him. I did. But it didn't fix anything. Not yet. Later that week, Naomi came over. She didn't bring up the shower again, not directly. She just walked into the kitchen, grabbed a bag of kettle chips, and sat at the table with me like she always does. You okay? She asked after a minute. I nodded, but I was lying. I didn't want to make it weird, she said. But I saw your face when Amara said that. You were shrinking into yourself. And I couldn't let them do it to you again. That part almost made me cry. But I held it in. I don't think I'll ever really be part of that family, I admitted. No matter how hard I try. She looked at me over the rim of her glass. Then stopped trying. You've got people. You've got me. And you've got that incredible kid in the other room who thinks the sun rises and sets on you. I nodded again. This time, it wasn't a lie. After she left, I sat alone in the quiet. The house was small, but it felt cavernous sometimes, especially at night. I looked at the envelope again, then at the pictures on the fridge. Jasper with his missing front tooth. Jasper in his Halloween astronaut costume. Me, holding him on the beach, both of us squinting into the sun. Maybe I didn't have the family I was born into. But I had something better. People who chose me. People who showed up. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. That this one moment at the shower had peeled back a layer no one could put back. The next time I saw Amara was at a family brunch about a week later. My mom's idea. She wanted to smooth things over. When I walked in, holding Jasper's hand, the room got a little quieter but not silent. Amara gave me a tight smile. She looked tired. Or maybe just unsettled. It was the first time I'd seen her without her usual armor, no makeup, hair in a bun, dark circles under her eyes. We sat across from each other at the long wooden table. She didn't apologize. She didn't say anything at all. Not yet. The brunch was one of those passive-aggressive family rituals my mother insists on when something unpleasant happens. Her solution to anything uncomfortable is eggs Benedict and orange juice in mismatched glasses, as if baked French toast could somehow mend emotional wounds. We were seated in that too-bright sunroom that always felt slightly too formal for our casual, dysfunctional family get-togethers. The windows overlooked the back garden, the same one where the baby shower had happened. The memory still lingered like the faint smell of perfume after someone leaves the room. I kept my head down mostly, helping Jasper with his scrambled eggs and occasionally murmuring polite responses when someone tried to rope me into a conversation about preschool admissions or real estate trends. Amara, across from me, pushed her food around her plate. She wasn't smiling much. Her friends weren't around, and with no audience, she looked almost small. I wondered if she knew how fragile that comment at the shower had made her look, not powerful, not superior, just insecure. At one point, Miles tried to make small talk with me about the school year starting. It felt awkward, like he was trying to act like things were back to normal. But there was no normal anymore. The air had changed. About halfway through the meal, Amara finally looked at me. Really looked. Not a sideways glance. Not a fake grin. Just this quiet, tentative stare, like she wasn't sure what she was about to say or what response she'd get if she said it. She cleared her throat and said, I didn't mean to make you feel bad. At the shower. It wasn't an apology, not really. But it was something. I nodded slightly. You didn't make me feel bad. You just showed me where I stand. She blinked, as if she didn't expect me to respond. Or at least not like that. Miles looked between us nervously. My mother, always more concerned about appearances than honesty, cut in with a bright, forced tone. Let's not dwell, girls. It was just a misunderstanding. No, it wasn't. And I could see in Amara's face that even she didn't believe that. But I didn't push. I wasn't there to fight. I was just tired. Tired of playing the quiet role. Tired of being the sensitive one. Tired of letting things go for the sake of keeping the peace while no one else sacrificed a damn thing. I helped clear dishes when brunch ended, out of habit more than anything. My mother didn't thank me. She never does. She just pointed out that next time, maybe I could bring that rosemary bread you used to bake because people really liked it. As we were leaving, Miles walked us out to the car. Jasper climbed into the back seat, humming to himself, blissfully unaware of the tension lingering like morning fog. Miles scratched the back of his neck. Listen, Fiona. I think Amara's been struggling more than she lets on. I looked at him. That doesn't excuse how she treats people. He nodded. I know. I think she's scared. Of not being enough. Of being forgotten. She's used to getting attention, and now that everything's shifting, it's getting to her. I didn't reply right away. What I wanted to say was, I know exactly how that feels. But I didn't want to open that door for him, not yet. Instead, I said, she has you. She has Mom. She has everyone backing her, all the time. I don't think she understands what being forgotten really feels like. He didn't argue. That week, I went back to work, and life continued. Jasper started first grade, and we got into our little routines again, packing lunches, reading before bed, walking to the park on Saturdays. Things settled. But I felt different. It wasn't just about the baby shower. It was that the baby shower forced me to really look at what I'd allowed for so long being invisible. Being the strong one who doesn't need anything. Being the reliable sibling, the daughter who never makes waves, the single mom who carries everything quietly. But something had cracked open now, and I couldn't push it back down. Naomi came over again the following Friday. She brought Thai takeout and some knockoff wine she picked up from a shop downtown. We sat on the porch after Jasper went to bed, the two of us wrapped in old blankets, the air smelling like wet grass. Amara tried to make peace, I said, taking a sip from my glass. Naomi raised an eyebrow. Define make peace. She said she didn't mean to make me feel bad. Naomi snorted. That's not an apology. That's her trying to clear her conscience without actually owning anything. I know, I said quietly. But, maybe it's the best she can do right now. Naomi looked at me for a long second, then said, just make sure you're not letting people give you scraps and calling it a meal. That hit me harder than I expected. Because she was right. I'd been doing that my whole life, accepting the bare minimum from people I love because I didn't want to seem needy or dramatic or, God forbid, ungrateful. But now, I had a kid who was watching everything I did. And I didn't want him growing up thinking that was normal. That this is how family treats you. Still, part of me wanted things to get better with them. I don't know why. Maybe because they're my people, and even if they've failed me, some small, foolish part of me keeps hoping they'll wake up and do better. A few days later, I got a text from Amara. Hey. I know things are still awkward. I was thinking of doing a small lunch soon. Just us. Maybe we can talk? I stared at the screen for a while. Was this growth? Guilt? A trap? I didn't know. But I replied, okay. Because as much as I wanted to be done with the performance of civility, I wasn't done growing. And maybe, just maybe, they weren't either. The lunch was set for a Thursday afternoon. Amara picked a small cafe in Mount Pleasant, the kind of place with exposed brick walls and organic iced teas served in mason jars. It was empty except for a few other women chatting quietly and a barista behind the counter with earbuds in. I arrived 5 minutes early, ordered a lemon tea, and waited. She came in right on time, her stomach now unmistakably round beneath a cream-colored blouse, hair perfectly curled, and face made up just enough to look like she wasn't trying. She smiled when she saw me. I didn't smile back. "Thanks for coming," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I nodded, keeping my hands wrapped around my tea. "You said you wanted to talk." She took a deep breath. "I'd been thinking about what I said at the shower. And it was out of line. I shouldn't have said it. It was mean, and it wasn't true." I waited. She fidgeted with her straw wrapper. "I guess I got caught up in the moment. Everyone was watching. And you looked so judgmental. Like you were above it all." That made me blink. "You thought I was judging you?" She shrugged. "You never say anything, Fiona. You just sit there like you're silently tallying everyone's flaws." I laughed quietly, without humor. "You thought I was judging you?" "Amara, I showed up with my kid, a gift, and cupcakes. I didn't even want to be there. I was just trying to be polite." She looked genuinely confused. "Then why come?" "Because I know what it feels like to be pregnant and scared. And alone. And I didn't want you to feel that. Even if you would have let me." For a second, her face softened. "I thought you didn't like me," she said. "I don't like how you treat people," I replied. "That's different." She flinched a little. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't a trap. This was her trying, in her own broken, self-centered way, to make amends. Still, I had something to say. Something I hadn't allowed myself to say until now. "You humiliated me in front of our family. Not just because of that one comment. But because for 7 years, you've let me carry the screw-up single mom label while you got to be the picture-perfect daughter-in-law. I never meant you didn't have to mean it. You benefited from it. You got the attention, the support, the baby shower, the Pinterest posts. I got silence." She looked down, cheeks pink. "I didn't realize it hurt you that much." "Well, it did." We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the blender whirring behind the counter. Then I leaned forward and said, "But I'm done waiting for this family to see me. I'm not trying to fit in anymore." She nodded slowly, almost relieved. Like she didn't want to keep pretending either. That could have been the end. But it wasn't. Because I had one more move to make. A few weeks later, my school held a charity auction gala. Every year, we auction off donated services, tutoring, photography sessions, babysitting hours to raise money for supplies and after-school programs. It's a big deal in the local community, especially among the suburban parent circles. People dress up. Donors sponsor tables. The press sometimes shows up. This year, I had a plan. Naomi and I sponsored a table under the name Jasper's Joy Foundation, a name I made up that week. The foundation wasn't real. But the cause was. We announced a partnership with the school for a single parent support fund, where proceeds would go toward baby essentials and educational grants for young or solo parents, especially moms like me, who'd done it all alone. I gave a speech at the event. I talked about shame. About silence. About the things women are expected to carry with a smile. And about how important it is to celebrate every kind of parenthood, not just the picture-perfect kind. I never mentioned Amara. Not once. But I knew she was there. Miles brought her. My mother sat stiffly beside them, tight-lipped and flushed. They heard every word. Every truth spoken plainly. The crowd gave a standing ovation. And when the bids opened, our foundation received the highest single donation of the night from an anonymous donor who I'm 99% sure was Naomi's boss, who she'd just happened to mention the event to. That night, as I packed up brochures and thank you cards, Amara walked up to me. She didn't speak at first. Just stood there, looking unsure. Then she said, "You were incredible." I smiled at her for the first time in a long time. "I know." She hesitated, then pulled something from her purse. "A check." Made out to Jasper's Joy Foundation. Not huge. But meaningful. Because you were right, she said quietly. About all of it. I took it. I thanked her. And I meant it. That was the moment. The real one. Not the speech. Not the check. Not even the public support. The moment of revenge, the satisfying kind, was seeing her look at me not as a jealous outsider, but as someone who had earned respect. Who demanded it, without ever raising her voice. The best part? I never had to embarrass her. I didn't have to destroy her. I let her keep her dignity. I just told the truth and let it echo. Today, the foundation is real. We filed the paperwork 6 months ago. Naomi and I run it in our spare time, and it's already helped a few moms get car seats, housing deposits, and even cover hospital bills. Jasper helps me stuff envelopes for mailers. He tells people, my mom started something important. And he's right. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't cruelty. It's thriving in full view of those who tried to erase you. And smiling not because you're pretending but because you finally feel seen.